George Tung Yep was the first Anglican bishop with Chinese heritage. As a young boy, George went regularly to the Buddhist temple in Cairns in northern Queensland. With his mother Maggie, a devout Buddhist, he performed Buddhist rituals including lighting joss sticks daily at the shrine in their family home. After his mom died when he was 11, he said he fell into a spiritual wilderness. But after 5 years, he found faith again in the Anglican Church, and after decades as a priest, he became the first Chinese Australian bishop in the Anglican Church in Australia. Chinese belief systems had helped prepare his path to the Anglican Church. He practiced Buddhism, but he also went to the Taoist temple in Cairns. His mother also performed certain Taoist practices. George had observed that people went to the temple to consult joss sticks before making big life decisions. That practice showed him the connectedness between what you do and the great mystery out there. He also realized that the old rigid religious boundaries were fading and there was greater tolerance and acceptance. He said, for example, that when his mother was on his deathbed, the hospital matron, who was Catholic, made sure that his mother had her own prayer beads. George's father, Tung Yep, came to Australia from Taishan in Guangdong province. In Cairns, he opened a store and established a trading business. Yi had left a wife and 4 daughters in China. Like many Chinese immigrants at that time, he remarried in Australia. He married Maggie and they had 5 children, including George. George was born in Cairns in 1927, but shortly after his birth, he was sent to China with his mother. His father had asked her to check her properties over there. George spent the first 3 years of life with his father's first wife and his mother. He said the 2 wives were okay with the arrangement. Cantonese became his first language. Although being too young, he didn't get to master it. He stopped speaking it when he came back to his English-speaking siblings. Back in Cairns, George lived his formative years in Chinatown, which was considered a bad environment those days, with its brothels, gaming houses, and opium dens. But he says that in Chinatown, he learned how people respected each other, families supported each other, and how Chinese solidarity provided them security and confidence in their culture. George left school when he was 14 years old to become an apprentice boilermaker at Queensland Railways. When he was 16, World War II broke out and he was forced to quit the railways. He had to look after the family business because his elder brother Thomas, who had managed the business, had enlisted with the Air Force. It was during this period that he got involved in church work. He got baptized in the Anglican Church and he heeded the call of the priesthood. In 1951, George left for Brisbane to start his training for the priesthood at St. Francis Theological College. He finished in 1953 and was ordained the next year. Before his ordination, his bishop did something that reminded him that he was Chinese. George said, "My bishop wrote to every other bishop in Australia and sought some reaction from them as to how I could handle a white congregation. I believe they all said, 'It's worth trying.'" George's early assignments were as a bush brother in remote, harsh Western Queensland towns such as Cloncurry. He found it an enlightening experience. Communities showed great generosity and resilience despite suffering from a prolonged drought. In 1960, he married Marion Meredith, a woman of Welsh heritage. They met when she was doing education work in Brisbane. Marion's father was initially not keen on the marriage, saying George wasn't the ideal mate for his daughter. He also thought that kids from mixed marriages would not find it easy to socialize. But he came around after the birth of their 4 sons. George said, "We used to have long talks, and he said that if he died, out of all his children, he would want his wife to stay with us, and she did. George was consecrated as a bishop in 1985. For 10 years, he served the Northern Queensland Diocese, which had a congregation of 20,000 people. The Anglican Church has recognized his contributions, especially in the areas of clergy training, youth support, marriage counseling, establishing new schools, and restoring rundown parishes. He was awarded a Queen Elizabeth II Silver Jubilee Medal in 1977.